Lake Galilee, at over 200 metres below sea level, is the lowest freshwater lake in the world. This small lake is only 21 kilometres long and 13 kilometres wide. It has a maximum depth of approximately 43 metres. Today, it's the major source of Israel's fresh water. It is arguably the most famous lake in the world. This is, of course, due to the ministry of Jesus as recorded in the New Testament. Many of the events described in the Gospels took place in the region of this lake. On these waters, Jesus' disciples fished, and on these waters, Jesus and his disciples sailed. In 1986, the ruins of a first-century boat were discovered in the mud of the Sea of Galilee. The boat was just over 8 metres long and 2 metres wide, and it was in such a boat that the disciples battled the waves as Jesus slept, and from which he said to the storm, "Peace, be still." During the time of Jesus, there were at least 16 harbours located around the lake. All the lake settlements had their own harbour. Of particular interest to us is the town of Capernaum on the northern bank of the lake. Capernaum became the base from which Jesus conducted his ministry. Matthew 4:13 says that after being tempted in the wilderness, Jesus returned to Galilee, to Nazareth, and shortly after he left Nazareth and went and lived in Capernaum. It was in Capernaum that many gospel stories occurred. In particular, we remember the calling by Jesus of the 4 fishermen brothers, Peter and Andrew, and James and John, to be his disciples. But what was Capernaum like at the time of Jesus? Excavations of the town have revealed that it was a small village consisting of homes that were unpretentious but not poor. They would have been used by extended families. The homes were made of basalt, or as we might call it, bluestone. They were single-storey but had a staircase leading up to a flat-top roof. The roofs were constructed of wooden beams, with smaller sticks placed over them, and then finally beaten earth mixed with straw placed on the top. The fact that these roofs could be removed is seen in the story of the healing of the paralysed man in Mark chapter 2, where it says, "A few days later, when Jesus again entered Capernaum, the people heard that he had come home. So many gathered that there was no room left, not even outside the door. And he preached the word to them. Some men came bringing to him a paralytic. Since they could not get him to Jesus because of the crowd, they made an opening in the roof above Jesus, and after digging through it, they lowered the paralysed man into the room." Another house in Capernaum that was mentioned was the house of Peter. We have an early record, dated to about 380 AD, where a pilgrim wrote that in Capernaum, the house of Peter was changed into a church, and the walls, however, of that house were still standing as they were in the past. It is interesting because archaeological excavations have uncovered evidence of a first-century house which was later turned into a church. Opposite this church is an ancient synagogue. The synagogue you're looking at is called the White Synagogue, and it dates to about 400 years after the time of Jesus. However, if you notice under the limestone base of this synagogue, there's a basalt wall that formed the foundations of an earlier synagogue which have been dated to the time of Jesus. There were a number of gospel events that were recorded, which took place here. It was in the synagogue that Jesus healed the man with the withered hand. It was also here that Jesus said, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty." The area of Galilee is where Jesus lived, where he exercised much of his ministry. Those who walk here today are reminded, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory.